You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Product adaptation is the discipline of treating change as a response to evidence rather than as random reaction. Teams that embrace this orientation translate real-world signals into timely decisions that improve product fit, reduce risk, and sustain value over time. Adaptation requires both humility and structure. Humility to accept that initial assumptions will be incomplete or wrong, and structure to ensure changes are made safely, consistently, and with clear rationale. It is not about chasing every new idea, but about filtering observations through a disciplined process. By embedding adaptation into product management, teams ensure that learning is not wasted but is converted into adjustments that move the product closer to user needs and business goals. This orientation prevents stagnation, reduces wasted investment in misaligned features, and fosters a cycle where discovery and delivery feed each other continuously. An adaptation mindset reframes learning as the primary trigger for change. Instead of seeing feedback as an inconvenience, teams treat it as the raw material for evolution. Each observation, whether from usage data, customer interaction, or market shift, becomes an input that may justify adjusting scope, sequencing, or design. For example, if telemetry shows that a supposedly critical feature is rarely used, the team may shift attention to areas where users are more engaged. Linking learning to explicit decisions ensures that adaptation is intentional and evidence-driven rather than arbitrary. This mindset requires discipline in documenting what was observed, what decision was made, and why it is expected to improve outcomes. Over time, the practice builds trust with stakeholders because adaptations are traceable to real insights rather than opinion or whim. The adaptation mindset transforms feedback from noise into actionable guidance for steering product direction. Feedback sources are diverse, and without organization, they can overwhelm teams or lead to anecdote-driven swings. Creating a taxonomy of feedback sources ensures that signals are captured, categorized, and weighed appropriately. Telemetry provides quantitative insight into usage patterns, while customer conversations offer qualitative context. Support tickets reveal recurring pain points, sales teams bring competitive intelligence, and market moves highlight external pressures. Each of these channels has different strengths and biases, so a coherent intake process prevents overreaction to the loudest voice. For example, a single high-profile complaint may feel urgent, but placing it alongside broader telemetry may show it as an outlier. Conversely, a subtle trend in support cases might highlight a systemic issue invisible in aggregate data. By consolidating feedback sources into a balanced view, teams build confidence that adaptation decisions are grounded in reality, not in selective anecdotes. Maintaining a hypothesis and assumptions log makes adaptation transparent and disciplined. Every product is built on beliefs about what users want, what technology can deliver, and what the market will reward. These assumptions should not remain hidden, but should be documented, tested, and updated as data arrives. For instance, a team might log the belief that reducing onboarding steps will improve conversion rates. If subsequent data contradicts this, the log records what changed and why the next step is justified. This record creates accountability and shows stakeholders that direction changes are not arbitrary. It also prevents the team from forgetting past lessons or repeatedly testing the same flawed assumptions. The log transforms adaptation into a learning pipeline, where evidence updates beliefs, which then shape the next actions. By making this cycle explicit, organizations preserve institutional knowledge and build resilience into decision-making. Backlog reordering is the practical manifestation of evidence-based adaptation. As validated ideas rise in credibility, they should be promoted, while weaker bets are deprioritized or removed. The backlog becomes a living reflection of current knowledge, not a frozen inventory of past guesses. For example, if an experiment confirms that a feature significantly reduces churn, that feature may move up in priority, displacing less promising items. Conversely, If user research invalidates an assumption, related backlog items may be retired. This continuous reordering ensures that delivery energy is always aligned with the best available evidence. It also builds trust with stakeholders, who can see that the backlog evolves with learning rather than drifting from reality. By tying backlog order to evidence, teams prevent the costly trap of working on features that no longer serve user needs or business goals, keeping focus sharp and responsive. Slicing strategies evolve as uncertainty persists. When confidence is low, delivering large increments increases the risk of wasted effort. Refining work into thinner, end-to-end slices accelerates insight while lowering integration and rollback risk. For example, instead of building a full reporting dashboard, a team might first deliver a single metric with basic visualization to gauge user engagement. This approach yields faster feedback and reveals whether the broader investment is warranted. Thin slices also reduce the cost of mistakes, since small increments are easier to adjust or discard. Over time, this method creates a rhythm of learning that compounds, turning uncertainty into incremental clarity. By consciously adjusting slicing strategies based on the level of ambiguity, teams maximize both safety and insight. This practice embodies the principle that adaptation is not just about what is built, but about how learning is structured into delivery. Value risk triage provides a framework for selecting the next increment in a way that balances desirability, feasibility, and viability. Adaptation is not only about following user demand, but about choosing the changes that optimize both learning speed and business impact. For instance, a feature with uncertain value but low cost of delay may warrant immediate exploration, while a complex feature with high risk might be postponed until more is understood. By considering factors such as risk reduction, opportunity cost, and potential payoff, teams avoid chasing shiny objects or delaying important mitigations. Triage turns backlog ordering into a strategic act, ensuring that adaptation improves not just responsiveness but also overall outcomes. It also creates transparency with stakeholders, showing how trade-offs are made. In this way, value-risk triage prevents adaptation from being reactive, instead making it a deliberate balancing act that serves the broader system. Non-functional adaptation is just as critical as functional evolution. Feedback often reveals issues with performance, security, accessibility, or operability that require immediate attention. For example, telemetry may show that response times degrade under peak load, or user research may highlight accessibility barriers for certain audiences. Ignoring these signals in favor of new features creates hidden liabilities that erode trust and value. Adaptive teams update acceptance criteria to reflect these findings, ensuring that non-functional requirements evolve alongside functionality. This keeps the product aligned with real-world expectations, where quality is judged not just by what the product does but by how reliably and inclusively it operates. Non-functional adaptation acknowledges that user experience extends beyond visible features, and that sustained value depends on continuous attention to underlying qualities. By embedding this responsiveness, teams create products that are both adaptable and resilient. Pivot or persevere criteria bring discipline to major directional choices. Rather than relying on gut instinct, teams define thresholds, confidence levels, and stop-loss rules in advance. For example, a team may decide that if user adoption does not improve by a certain percentage after 3 iterations, the feature will be abandoned or reimagined. By setting these criteria explicitly, decisions become transparent and defensible. This prevents sunk cost bias from driving continued investment in failing ideas and reassures stakeholders that resources are allocated responsibly. Pivoting is not a sign of failure but of learning, while persevering is justified when evidence supports continued investment. The key is making the standards clear ahead of time so the decision is about data rather than opinion. This practice turns potentially contentious shifts into shared, rational choices that reinforce trust and maintain momentum. Runtime configurability enables safe adaptation by decoupling deployment from release. Feature flags, safe defaults, and targeted exposure allow teams to test changes with selected cohorts before rolling them out broadly. This technical capability transforms adaptation from a high-stakes gamble into a series of controlled experiments. For example, a new checkout flow might be exposed to 5% of users, while the rest continue with the old design. If metrics improve, exposure expands. If problems emerge, the change can be rolled back instantly. Runtime configurability not only accelerates learning, but also protects users from the risks of premature decisions. It empowers teams to adapt continuously in production while maintaining reliability. This practice demonstrates that technical enablers are as important as cultural ones in making adaptation a disciplined, evidence-driven process, rather than an uncontrolled leap. Experiment redesign acknowledges that initial tests often yield ambiguous or misleading results. Instead of forcing decisions based on weak evidence, adaptive teams refine cohorts, adjust metrics, or alter environments to clarify findings. For instance, if a new feature shows no significant impact, it may be because the cohort was too broad, masking differences among subgroups. By redesigning the experiment to focus on a narrower audience, clearer insights may emerge. Similarly, refining metrics from overall usage to specific behaviors can reveal subtler patterns. This willingness to revisit test design prevents false negatives or overconfidence in misleading positives. It also reinforces that adaptation is iterative, not a one-shot judgment. Experiment redesign ensures that learning is robust, reducing the risk of steering the product based on flawed or incomplete information. It turns uncertainty into opportunity for sharper understanding, protecting both outcomes and credibility. Deprecation and sunset practices address the reality that not all features endure. Some underperform, others become obsolete, and keeping them alive creates clutter and confusion. Adaptive teams retire features deliberately, with clear communication about rationale and migration paths. For example, phasing out an outdated reporting tool might involve announcing timelines, offering export options, and guiding users to a newer system. This practice preserves trust, showing users that decisions are made responsibly rather than arbitrarily. It also simplifies the product, reducing maintenance costs and lowering cognitive load for users. Sunset policies acknowledge that adaptation is not only about adding, but also about subtracting thoughtfully. By managing retirements transparently, teams reinforce that their responsiveness is aligned with user value, not just internal convenience. Deprecation thus becomes a constructive act, improving clarity and focus in the evolving product. Ethics and safety reviews are an essential safeguard in adaptive processes. Rapid responsiveness must not come at the expense of user trust, fairness, or well-being. Before implementing changes, teams evaluate potential unintended consequences, such as privacy risks, bias, or negative externalities. For instance, a personalization feature might improve engagement but inadvertently disadvantage certain user groups. An ethics review surfaces these risks and guides mitigation or redesign. Embedding such reviews into adaptation ensures that speed does not bypass responsibility. It signals to stakeholders and users alike that learning is pursued with integrity. These reviews are not about slowing progress, but about ensuring that responsiveness does not externalize harm. In an era where user trust is fragile, building ethics into the adaptation process protects long-term value and reputation, making it a non-negotiable component of disciplined product evolution. Stakeholder communication is vital for turning adaptation into a shared narrative rather than a surprise. When changes occur, people need to know what shifted, what evidence drove the shift, and what effects to expect. Clear communication builds trust by showing that decisions are evidence-based and aligned with shared goals. For example, explaining that a feature was delayed due to security concerns reframes the change as responsible stewardship rather than failure. Transparent updates also engage stakeholders in the learning process, reinforcing the idea that adaptation is collaborative. By framing each adjustment as part of an ongoing story of discovery and improvement, teams reduce resistance and increase buy-in. Communication ensures that adaptation is not just a technical adjustment, but a cultural one, where everyone feels included in the journey of evolving the product toward better outcomes. Governance alignment closes Part 1 by embedding oversight into adaptation without stalling momentum. Traditional governance can create bottlenecks with heavy approval processes, but lightweight models ensure both compliance and agility. For example, requiring a brief evidence summary and traceable decision record may satisfy audit needs without demanding exhaustive documentation. Governance alignment also ensures that adaptation remains accountable, preventing shortcuts that could expose the organization to risk. By integrating governance with learning logs and backlog updates, oversight becomes part of the adaptive rhythm rather than a separate hurdle. This balance reassures regulators, auditors, and stakeholders that adaptation is both disciplined and transparent. It transforms governance from a barrier into an enabler, supporting safe responsiveness while preserving trust. In adaptive product development, alignment with governance is not optional. It is the final guardrail that ensures evolution remains responsible. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Adoption and change management are critical to ensuring that adaptations actually deliver value to users. Even the most well-designed adjustment can fail if users are not prepared to embrace it. This means teams must pair product changes with clear messaging, training, and support updates that smooth the transition. For example, a new workflow introduced without guidance may frustrate users, while the same workflow launched with tutorials and proactive support may be welcomed as an improvement. Adoption efforts also build trust by showing that the organization considers user experience beyond the technical release. Change management bridges the gap between internal responsiveness and external perception, ensuring that learning translates into successful outcomes. Without it, product evolution risks being seen as disruption rather than improvement. By planning adoption alongside adaptation, organizations ensure that the benefits of change are realized in practice, not just in design. Adaptation effectiveness metrics provide the feedback loop that confirms whether responsiveness is actually improving outcomes. Key measures include time to change, outcome deltas, and rework reduction. Time to change reflects how quickly the organization can incorporate learning into product evolution. Outcome deltas show whether changes produce the intended improvements, such as higher engagement or reduced defects. Rework reduction indicates whether the product is becoming more efficient as weak assumptions are replaced with validated ones. For example, if user satisfaction rises and bug counts fall after adjustments, adaptation is working. If rework increases, it may signal that changes are rushed or poorly validated. These metrics transform adaptation from a process of constant motion into one of measurable progress. By tracking them consistently, organizations can identify strengths, correct weaknesses, and demonstrate that responsiveness is a disciplined driver of value rather than a source of churn. Decision logs and living documentation ensure that adaptation decisions remain visible and comprehensible over time. Each change is accompanied by a record of the rationale, evidence, and updated acceptance criteria. These logs prevent institutional memory from fading and allow future teams to understand why choices were made. For example, if a feature is removed, the log might show that user adoption was low and support costs were high, providing clarity for auditors or new team members. Living documentation integrates these logs into evolving artifacts, so they remain synchronized with the product's true state rather than lagging behind. This transparency fosters accountability and continuity, reducing the risk of repeating past mistakes or overlooking critical assumptions. By making adaptation traceable, decision logs strengthen both governance and learning, ensuring that every adjustment contributes to a growing body of shared organizational knowledge. Refactoring and technical debt repayment are essential adaptations triggered by learning. As products evolve, discoveries often expose fragile code, outdated patterns, or shortcuts that impede future change. Scheduling time to refactor and address debt ensures that adaptability is preserved. For instance, if experiments reveal that scaling will stress current architecture, refactoring now prevents costly failures later. Ignoring technical debt in pursuit of speed creates brittleness, making future adaptations harder and riskier. By treating refactoring as part of the adaptive cycle, organizations balance short-term delivery with long-term sustainability. This discipline acknowledges that learning sometimes uncovers not just what to build, but how to strengthen the foundation for building. In this way, technical debt repayment becomes not a distraction, but a vital investment in resilience, enabling the product to continue evolving safely and efficiently. Usability and accessibility refinements ensure that adaptations truly serve real users. Feedback often reveals friction points in comprehension, efficiency, or inclusiveness. For example, a new navigation pattern may confuse users with cognitive impairments or slow down experienced users trying to complete tasks quickly. Incorporating research findings into refinements demonstrates responsiveness not just to abstract data, but to lived experiences. Accessibility adjustments, such as improving screen reader compatibility or color contrast, expand value to broader audiences. Usability improvements, such as clearer language or more intuitive layouts, reduce frustration and increase adoption. By embedding these refinements into adaptation, organizations show that they are not only building features, but also ensuring that those features work for everyone. This emphasis on usability and accessibility reinforces trust and broadens impact, making adaptation more than technical. It becomes human-centered evolution. Rollout strategies provide the mechanisms for deploying adaptations safely. Techniques such as rings, canaries, or opt-in releases match exposure to risk. For example, a change might first be released to an internal team, then to a small external cohort, and finally to all users. Canary deployments allow issues to surface in limited environments before affecting the broader population. Opt-ins empower enthusiastic users to test new features while giving others the stability of existing workflows. These strategies generate high-quality signals by isolating impact and allowing rapid reversals if needed. By tailoring rollout methods to the level of uncertainty, teams reduce risk while maximizing learning. Rollout strategies embody the principle that adaptation must be both fast and safe, ensuring that users experience improvement without disruption and that evidence is gathered under controlled conditions. Architectural adjustments are often necessary when learning reveals barriers to safe change. Discoveries may show that components are too tightly coupled, that boundaries are unclear, or that observability is lacking. Making architectural shifts, such as modularizing systems, clarifying service contracts, or enhancing monitoring, removes friction from future adaptation. For example, if repeated experiments are slowed by complex dependencies, re-architecting to decouple modules enables faster, safer evolution. Observability upgrades ensure that teams can see the impact of changes in real time, reducing blind spots that could otherwise hide risks. These adjustments require investment, but they pay dividends in adaptability. By addressing the structural impediments exposed by learning, organizations ensure that responsiveness does not degrade quality or stability. Architecture becomes not just a technical concern but a strategic enabler of disciplined product evolution. Vendor and partner alignment ensures that external dependencies evolve in step with product adaptations. Contracts, service-level agreements, and joint plans must reflect iterative practices rather than rigid deliverables. For example, if a partner provides a critical API, the cadence of updates and acceptance must align with the team's adaptive rhythm. Misalignment here can stall progress or create integration risks. By engaging vendors and partners in adaptation, organizations extend their learning loop beyond internal boundaries. This may involve negotiating flexible terms, embedding shared review cycles, or co-creating roadmaps. Aligning external stakeholders reduces friction and builds a cohesive ecosystem where responsiveness flows across organizational lines. This coordination ensures that product adaptation remains smooth, consistent, and safe, even when dependencies are outside direct control. reinforcing the principle that adaptation is an interconnected, system-wide practice. Migration and backward compatibility strategies are crucial for adapting without disrupting existing users. Learning often reveals better designs, but abandoning old systems overnight risks alienating loyal customers. Strategies such as dual-running old and new systems, providing clear migration paths, or maintaining backward-compatible interfaces protect users while enabling progress. For example, introducing a new data format might include tools to convert from the old format, minimizing friction. These practices demonstrate respect for user investment and reduce resistance to change. They also buy time for gradual adoption, allowing organizations to refine new features based on feedback while sustaining current usage. Migration strategies embody the balance at the heart of adaptation, pursuing innovation while safeguarding continuity. By planning transitions thoughtfully, teams maintain trust and deliver improvements without leaving anyone behind. Compliance adaptation ensures that evolving products remain aligned with regulatory expectations. Every feature change may affect evidence, controls, or attestations required by regulators and auditors. For example, adding a new data collection feature may demand updates to privacy notices, security controls, or audit trails. Adaptive teams integrate compliance updates into their workflow, rather than treating them as afterthoughts. This prevents the accumulation of hidden liabilities that could derail progress later. Lightweight processes link backlog items to compliance artifacts, ensuring traceability. This alignment reassures stakeholders that adaptation is not reckless, but responsible. By embedding compliance into product adaptation, organizations balance agility with accountability, proving that responsiveness can coexist with discipline. This practice not only avoids regulatory risk, but also strengthens user trust, as customers see that adaptability never comes at the cost of integrity or protection. Localization and market tailoring are forms of adaptation that extend relevance across diverse contexts. Learning may reveal that cultural differences, language nuances, or legal requirements alter how value is delivered. For instance, a feature that resonates in one region may need adjustments in content or behavior to fit another. Localization ensures that products feel native to their users, while market tailoring adapts functionality to comply with local laws or norms. By embedding these practices, teams expand their product's reach without diluting impact. Adaptation here is not just about technical features but about cultural and contextual fit. It shows respect for user diversity and positions the product for sustainable global success. Localization and tailoring transform adaptation from a uniform process into a nuanced strategy that maximizes relevance while preserving core goals. Portfolio integration ensures that learning at the product level informs broader strategy. Discoveries about user behavior, technology limits, or market shifts often apply beyond a single offering. Rolling up insights into portfolio-level planning allows organizations to coordinate related products, shared platforms, and investment decisions. For example, learning from one product about accessibility challenges can shape standards across the portfolio, raising quality system-wide. Portfolio integration prevents silos of learning and ensures that adaptation at one level strengthens the whole ecosystem. This practice aligns product responsiveness with organizational agility, ensuring that resources are directed where they will have the most collective impact. By making adaptation systemic, organizations multiply its benefits and reduce duplication of effort. Portfolio integration turns product evolution into a strategic lever for enterprise-wide resilience and value creation. Risk register updates close the loop by converting new insights into mitigations and contingencies. As products evolve, risks also change, and keeping registers static creates blind spots. For example, a new integration may introduce dependency risks, or a retired feature may reduce security exposure. Updating the register ensures that the organization maintains a current picture of its risk landscape. This practice integrates adaptation with broader risk management, ensuring that responsiveness is aligned with responsible stewardship. It also provides transparency for stakeholders, showing that evolving features are evaluated not only for opportunity, but also for risk. By embedding risk updates into the adaptation cadence, organizations prevent surprises and maintain resilience. This discipline ensures that adaptation strengthens the entire system rather than inadvertently creating new vulnerabilities. Sustainment cadence ensures that adaptation does not fade back into static planning. Regular reviews are scheduled to prune dead ends, amplify promising shifts, and recalibrate strategies. For instance, a quarterly adaptation review may assess which changes delivered measurable value and which should be retired. This cadence prevents the accumulation of half-finished pivots or neglected experiments. It reinforces the cycle of evidence, decision, and adjustment, ensuring that responsiveness remains vibrant. By making sustainment explicit, organizations avoid drift into complacency, where adaptation becomes episodic rather than continuous. Sustainment cadence institutionalizes adaptability as a long-term habit, turning it from a project initiative into an enduring organizational capability. It is the rhythm that keeps learning alive, ensuring that products continue to evolve responsibly as conditions change. Product adaptation synthesis highlights an explicit learning-to-change pipeline as the essence of responsible responsiveness. Evidence intake, testable decisions, safe rollout, and measurable effects form the backbone of this pipeline. By embedding practices such as hypothesis logs, runtime configurability, and sunset policies, teams ensure that adaptations are disciplined and transparent. Complementary elements like adoption planning, ethics reviews, and portfolio integration reinforce that adaptation is holistic, balancing speed with safety, user trust, and strategic coherence. This approach demonstrates that change is not a failure of planning, but a natural outcome of learning. By treating responsiveness as a structured process, organizations can evolve products continuously without sacrificing quality or stability. Product adaptation becomes not just a reaction to external pressure, but a deliberate practice that sustains value, improves fit, and builds resilience over the long term. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.